Joining me now, Florida Congressman Byron Donalds. Congressman, it's always great to see you. I want to get your reaction to what's happening right now.
This is a travesty. It's a travesty for the country. Look, you have a guy in Alvin Bragg who's taking some issue from 7 years ago. And I say issue because the FEC chose not to bring any charges or fines to the Trump campaign. The Department of Justice looked at this. They said there's nothing to see here. And so he's using some misdemeanor that's actually outside the statute of limitations to bring a felony on a federal charge that's outside his jurisdiction. So this is political persecution of Donald Trump. Alvin Bragg is doing the thing that the radical left has been wanting to do from the second he stood up and said, I want to be the president of the United States because Hillary Clinton would be an absolute disaster. And he stopped the radical left agenda dead in its tracks. They have hated him for it ever since, and they have continued to go after him. And now you're seeing the results of this. This is terrible for the country.
And it's really interesting, Congressman, because it's DA Alvin Bragg that downgraded 52% of the felonies to misdemeanors. And this is something where he's doing the reverse. He's also got a star witness that has been disbarred and is a convicted felon.
No, all those things are true. Again, but Alvin Bragg campaigned on wanting to get Donald Trump. The Democrats for years have picked a target, they've polarized it, they've personalized it, and they've wanted to criminalize it, and that's what they're doing right now. But let me be very clear, it's not just about Republicans or Democrats or independents. In our country, we cannot allow for political prosecution. I want to also be clear. Nobody's above the law. But looking at the fact patterns in this situation, this is all politics, it's all personal, and it is being brought to us by the radical left Democrats, and Americans must stand against it.
Congressman, switching gears for a moment to another big story that we're watching. Speaker Kevin McCarthy not giving up on his push for talks over the debt ceiling despite President Biden's refusal to negotiate. Listen to this.
He is making the decision that he wants to put the economy in jeopardy. I don't know what more I can do and how easy. I would bring the lunch to the White House. I would make it soft food if that's what he wants. It doesn't matter. Whatever it takes to meet.
So the clock is obviously ticking. The White House is slamming Republicans over their suggested spending cuts, claiming they, quote, gut critical support for hardworking families while delivering massive tax breaks for the super wealthy and big corporations. Congressman, your response to this is a White House that hasn't been willing to really negotiate over anything. This is no different.
Well, first of all, the White House talking points are all lies anyway. I've seen the proposals. It doesn't do any of that. But number two, and more importantly, Joe Biden could have had a clean debt ceiling 6 months ago. Nancy Pelosi was Speaker of the House 6 months ago. Democrats still controlled the Senate 6 months ago. He could have had a clean debt ceiling 6 months ago. He chose not to get one because he wanted to play politics. He wanted to play brinksmanship, and Joe Biden wanted to play with the Treasury markets. Let's be clear. House Republicans have been working diligently for a couple of months now about different proposals within our conference so we can bring the conference together and move towards raising our debt ceiling and making sure we are being responsible with the fiscal future of the United States. So the American people need to understand Joe Biden doesn't want a negotiation. Joe Biden wants to run this up until the deadline so some bad, terrible deal gets pushed through at the last minute. He wants to play brinksmanship. He is old Washington that the American people are sick and tired of. Kevin McCarthy, House Republicans, we want to sit down and work right now, and we've been doing it. The president needs to step up and do his job, but be very clear. He wanted this fight on purpose because he could have extended the debt ceiling 6 months ago.
Yeah. And this is obviously just one piece of an overall distorted economic puzzle, if you will, right now. We've got rising interest rates, a potential banking crisis that seems like it's contained, at least for the moment. But then you've got President Biden and Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen blaming President Trump for these recent bank collapses. Yellen claiming that the Trump administration decimated financial oversight, while Biden is calling for a reversal of the rollback of regulations over mid-sized banks. You're on the House Financial Services Committee. I mean, does this make sense to you? Because the flip side of this coin that they're not mentioning is the fact that they spent over $6 trillion in the course of 2 years that sent interest rates skyrocketing.
Well, first of all, again, they're lying again. We actually just had congressional testimony from Vice Chairman Barr at the Federal Reserve, who's the head of supervisory. Even in his own testimony, he said that the bill that was signed under President Trump did not take any authority away from the Federal Reserve and the San Francisco Federal Reserve Bank to oversee Silicon Valley Bank or any other bank under their supervision. So the White House and the Treasury Secretary are lying to the American people yet again. Let's be very clear. We have an issue with supervisory, in my opinion, over the banking system. But at the end of the day, the failure of Silicon Valley Bank was on the bank's management. They did not have a risk officer in place. They did not make sure they paid attention to the interest rate risk on their balance sheet. But so much of the inflationary pressure, frankly, all of the inflationary pressure in the United States is because of Joe Biden's reckless spending when he came into the White House those first 2 years. Spending that amount of money when we did not need to is what sparked inflation, and now every American is suffering as a result.
Yeah, you make two really good points, and I'll just repeat them, that the bank obviously blundered with respect to how it structured its management and how it was looking at its investments, and at the same time, with respect to regulation, the red flags were already raised. People just chose not to act on them. Congressman Byron Donalds, thank you so much for your time.
Anytime.